All right, people, unscripted energy as before. We're talking about my experience with the PSP and the downfall of the PlayStation Vita. Now, a little FYI, I know I have podcasts up talking about portable gaming and the PS2, but I was not present on those podcasts. So if you're interested in seeing the Infinite Ammo Syndicate cover that topic, you can check out the description below. Anyway, the PSP, the PlayStation Portable, it was fucking great. It was great, dude. I loved this device. I still have my old one. As you could plainly hear me fiddling around in the background. I just don't have a battery for it because I don't know where the fuck that went when I got into high school. But in junior high, I was playing this thing like non-stop clockwork, son. I'm talking Crisis Core, Final Fantasy, a really good action RPG. Loved it. Getting on missions, doing crazy shit for Shinra. Ooh, I fucking love this game. Also, the fight between Zack and, all the other people and shit, and you see Sephiroth and Genesis, and it was crazy, man. I loved it. Then I had Burnout Dominator. That was the marquee racing game for me, the marquee action racing game where you could drive through traffic, and it had great music like Alice in Chains would. Love that too. I didn't get around to playing Midnight Club LA Remix for way too long, but I do have it in my inventory somewhere in my closet at least. So you can see that on screen with the amazing, immaculate PSP emulator, because I did go back and play some PSP games through there that I had physically. I figured I might as well download the ISOs anyway because I can't play mine without the battery, right? Siphon Filter Dark Mirror, I was playing a little bit of that on the PSP emulator. I did not own that game. I did, however, play a demo of Siphon Filter Dark Mirror, and I played a demo of SOCOM Fireteam Bravo 2 on the PSP, so that's my only experience playing the first level of Siphon Filter on the PSP legit. But no, I did not own the full game. But it's a great action stealth title, you know what I'm saying? I emphasize action a lot because you can sneak around and get the jump on enemies, but in that game it seems to emphasize shooting, which is not too bad. And I want to talk about Tekken look good on this thing in terms of the emulator, at least. I do have a physical copy of Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, but it amazes me how, you can tweak everything in the emulator and it just looks fucking fantastic, even for a handheld game of this nature. It's amazing how they stripped the graphics down, but it's still a solid fighting game to its own merit. It has all the characters. It has the characters even in Tekken 6, like most of the roster, and they squeezed this down for a portable device. Now, I believe they don't have the modes that were present in the original Tekken 5 when you're talking Dark Resurrection. But we all know, really, Devil Within, the beat-em-up title starring Jin Kazama in Tekken 5, the mode that was supposed to surpass Tekken Force was some complete garbage. So we don't need that. We got dojo mode here, fam. I really loved the PSP. I think the PSP was amazing. They had so many third-party games, so many first-party games that you could literally just drown in them. I mean, come on, you got ports of Def Jam Fight for New York with Def Jam Fight for New York, The Takeover. You have other ports. You have scaled down new games for that system using some of the greatest franchises during the time. You have Grand Theft Auto on the PSP. You can play GTA on the PSP on the go with Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories. Two good titles. Believe me, it's worth it, even though I think the story of Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories. It could have used some more fine tuning, but I digress. It's still GTA on a handheld. Chinatown Wars, that came on the PSP as well. One of the flaws about the PSP though was the lack of a second analog stick, because you have this nub here, this little nub on the side that grates on my nerves to no end in sight. And because you don't have dual analog sticks, it means that the controls are kind of awkward in some games. What am I referring to? For example, in Crisis Core, you need to use the left trigger here and the right trigger to move the camera. In some other games like Siphon Filter, Dark Mirror, you need to use the face buttons like square, X, circle, triangle to center your gun on an enemy, even though it's kind of precise when you use manual aim because auto aim sucks. It's still a problem using the camera like this. So I guess you can kinda sorta say that the PSP is a victim of its own design. They had redesigns here. Let me do a quick Google search because, like I said, I do shit live when looking at shit. But I wanted to look at the PSP Go and how that looked. And let's see here. Did it have like dual analogs? No, it still had the nub. I'm gonna put that on screen, and it had the face buttons. It's a cool design, surely, and it's smaller as well. They had smaller PSP variants, and this was one of them. So I like how that looked. I really do, but I heard that there were some initial problems with the PSP Go. I don't know what they were exactly. You could buy them on eBay for like $88. They said the PSP Go failed in terms of sales. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but I still believe that the PSP was the cornerstone of making some really damn good first-party games, third-party games. Not all the ports were great. I believe X-Men Origins, Wolverine, you could play the better version on the PS3 anyway. I mean, Uncaged is unmatched. And on the later ports for later consoles, the quality started to dip. So you would get those games that would get superior ports on the consoles at the time, but for handhelds and maybe during the time when they were doing like multi-console titles, like I put something on the PS3, I put it on the PS2, I put it on the PS1. You know, remember when Tony Hawk was doing that cross console shit, going back to old gen and putting a title there? Like I think they put Pro Skater 3 on the PS1. I'm not too sure about that. I just remember that's an example of what they used to do. Not all the ports on the PSP were superior in that regard. And they made it a little bit better as a PS2 owner because at least some people went out of their way to make more money. They decided to put games on the PlayStation 2. I have a copy of GTA Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories on the PS2, and they did add the analog support back into the game so you can use the right analog to do whatever, and the camera control is superior in that regard. I'm not sure about everything else. They did add like some balloons or something to Vice City Stories, but that's besides the point. The point is PSP was great. Moving on to the Vita, which is conveniently behind me. The Vita fixed some of the design, so now you have dual analogs to work with the Vita. And you know, some games were pretty cool on there, like Killzone Mercenary. I remember going around and shivving the fuck out of the hell gas, slicing them dudes up like no tomorrow, like ribbons on a fat white girl's ass. I love that game. I loved it. I enjoyed it. You know, the only thing that really kind of pissed me off about the Vita was the touchscreen controls, because they were getting like more into that stuff. So you would have an instance where I'm coming behind the hell gas, right? I'm trying to cut his throat and get him the fuck out of the way. And I have to do a cross slash with my right index, and I have to do a down slash and an up slash, and I have to do all that to kill this guy. That also happened in Uncharted Golden Abyss. I'm fighting the guy in melee, prompt comes up, I might have to swing this direction, swing that direction, and drop kick the guy, put his mother to sleep, put his son to sleep, and whatever the fuck I'm saying right now, I'm going ballistic. But you have to do a lot to knock this dude out, and I just didn't like it. I wish there was a feature where you could cut off the touchscreen controls and enjoy the game normally. They also had this weird back plate thing where you could grab onto things and climb up vines by using it, and it was super weird. Like, maybe I'm not remembering how it was implemented originally, but I know there was a back touchscreen as well. I really didn't like that about the Vita games. I think in later PS3 games, in some PS4 games, they started phasing out the swipe pad and they started phasing out the 6-axis in the PS3 respectively because people just didn't want to use it. The devs didn't want to be tied to it. It's the same as a lot of games phasing out stuff like PS Move. You know, certain games didn't have PS Move. It was a craze back then, but eventually the gamers grew out of it. I guess people were saying it's trash, I don't want to use it, and eventually some games just started not using these gimmicks anymore. I did thoroughly enjoy the Vita. It's cool that you could also download your classics. If you want to go there and download your PSN classics, you can do that. You can go ahead and download PSP classics. I think the only classic I have on this thing, and give me 1 second because my Vita is right behind me. Let's fucking see. Let's fucking see. Shit, you're about to hear the classic startup right here. The classic Winna chicken dinner right here. Okay, warning, using product. You must consume product before you use product. Let's see. This thing takes forever to load. I'm sorry, people. I have MK on here. Huh, that's interesting. Well, the graphics, you can definitely, it doesn't look that great as the console versions, I can tell you that. I have Muramasa Rebirth, Power Stone Collection, let's see, Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. That's definitely a PSP game. So yeah, I have PSP games on here too. There's Skype on here. Oh, speak of the devil, eliminate that virus on site. Oh man, there is a lot of options, but when it came to first party, that's where the problem started, because eventually they were putting out stuff like Killzone Mercenary, Uncharted Golden Abyss, you know, a lot of first party titles for the Vita. You had your Freedom Wars, you had your Gravity Rushes, you had console ports come onto the system like PlayStation All-Stars and Mortal Kombat, but the problem with the Vita was that they didn't continue the same trend as the PSP. All development for Vita games, in regards to the West at least, putting out first party titles and third party titles, it just went by the way of the dodo. The corresponding situation about these games became absolutely extinct across the board. They stopped putting these massive AAA games on the system, possibly in favor for doing PS4 development, because as you guys are well aware, PlayStation 4 games, yeah, some of these games like God of War, they've been in development for a long time. Why would Sony waste all this money and time to put out a critical handheld when you're just going to focus on the PS4 anyway? A lot of people saw some of their statements. They said they're focusing more on mobile, etc. Look, we all know the gist of the fucking situation. Nintendo is killing it right now with the Nintendo Switch. It's a no-brainer. They're going to want to capitalize on that money, that mobile money, because Nintendo is making a killing being in second place. They're catching up, fam. They're catching up. I believe PlayStation is going to make a Switch variant. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I believe the easiest thing to do is to make the PS4 somehow portable. That would be my first guess. That would be the first experimentation. Have those games on the go. You already experienced stuff like remote play, where you can take a shit next door and still play on your mobile devices for PlayStation. So why not do that at a broader scope and make a PS4 Switch or something like that. I don't know. It's quite obvious though that Sony would not call it that because Nintendo would be knocking on their doorstep just like Soldier Boy saying, hey, you gotta cut this shit out before we do a 187 in your ass. A portable console itself. That would be the premise, right? Because Nintendo is already doing it. And there's patents and people saying, they're already trying this out. I don't think the PS5 is going to be like that. I think they're going to make a base PS5 and a portable device to some extent. The extent, I don't know. They're focusing, well, at least Xbox is. I'm not going to say PlayStation. Xbox is focusing more on streaming devices as well. So maybe that could tie into PlayStation Now. Maybe they might go diskless. Speaking about Sony here in the future, maybe they might go diskless too. We don't know the specifics, but I will say if they want that Nintendo money, it's not the first time they copied off of Nintendo before. They did this with the PlayStation Move, promptly displayed on screen. Nice job, Sony, but you're not fooling anyone. I think you're gonna do this again. What I want you to do is to make a legit handheld again, but give it a college try. Try to make it cutting edge. Try to give the incentive to developers to create games on this platform, and people will come and pick it up. I know I am one of them. I bought the Vita day one. I don't think I got the PSP until a bit later. It came out in 2005. I got mine in 2006. Enjoyed the fuck out of it. And then the last thing about the Vita I want to rant about really quickly is their memory cards. Everyone knows this. Their memory cards were fucking expensive. I had to pay $80 strictly for a 32 gig memory card on Amazon. I'm not shitting you. The reason why the PSP was so superior with memory cards was that you could use third party. Hypothetically speaking, like say if I wanted to get an SD card and it's like $40 for like maybe 32 gigs, 8 gigs, etc. I can go and do that because I'm not limited to Sony's greed with the way they handled the goddamn memory cards for the Vita. That was a huge disappointment. Please allow us to use third-party cards if you ever make another handheld again and not focus on phones or copying off Nintendo, and I will love you forever. Even if you do copy off them, let us use third-party cards. We don't want to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to buy your own first-party SD cards when they're super fucking expensive and I could buy SD cards elsewhere. That's very anti-consumerism. It really is. You're gouging our money here, and I don't like that. So you need to fix that immediately. Anyway, I did enjoy my time with Sony's handhelds. This fucking thing has a camera in the back, so if you want to send Skype pictures to your girlfriend in Slovakia and show her your cock, then you could do that on the fucking PlayStation Vita. That's fucking ridiculous. Oh man. Oh man, I lost my train of thought with that particular joke alone, but I wanted to say, if Sony wanted to continue a path of success with a mobile platform in the future, then I think personally, if I was in charge, they should drop the Phone Act, making games for mobile devices on phone, or at least putting way too much effort into them. Make a mobile studio for your first party developers where they can exchange ideas, R&D, etc., and then make the console equivalent to the next step, which is the PS5, and make a subsection of consoles that are reminiscent to the Nintendo Switch, which is handheld devices. I know that having two machines at once, I think the Xbox is kind of overdoing it with all these Xbox ports and all these Xbox renditions that are coming out, but I think one handheld, one console, that should be enough to get into, right? That's very easy mainstream stuff to say, hey, Do I want to play my games on the go? Or do I want to play my games at home on my home theater with a console? I think both choices are very valid for people who prefer both, but put the same amount of effort into both and make the handheld reminiscent to the Switch and the PSP, because like I said before, they already had a great idea with the PSP. The problems were the controls. The idea that was great was they had a lot of exclusive games, they had a lot of third party, they had a lot of ports that were, great, mostly great at least, because like I said, some ports were not the greatest. But if they support the console, I would be all for it, and no more expensive memory cards. We're past that shit, Sony. Stop it. Anyway, this is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video about my experience on the PSP, the Vita, and what led to the Vita's ultimate downfall, and what Sony should do in the future when it comes to handhelds. You can find me on social media in the link tree below. Hit me up there. Let's talk some gaming. Talk in the comments. Tell me how you felt about the video. And as always, you people stay fancy, and remember, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. I'll see you later. Peace out.